We are back on Bleav in Vikings on a post Mike Tice show. We had him on last week. He was absolutely marvelous. We're getting back into training camp stuff because training camp began last week. And we started off with these 3 glorious days of cool things happening, rookies falling out. And then it just hit a wall. And it's just been all garbage news since, turmoil. Will he or won't he get vaccinated and all this malarkey. But we have Josh Amix. I hope I said that correct. You are our special guest tonight, sir. You're a fan of the Vikings. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you mentioned already, I'm a fan of the Vikings. I moved here from Tennessee, and I didn't really have a team until I moved here. So
it's the name Minnesota.
That's right, Minnesota. It just was a natural fit. So that was how I became a fan, and through being a fan of the Vikings, I met Sally, and we're pretty close friends outside of fandom. So I'm glad to be here.
Okay, and how'd you meet Sally?
I actually met Sally through other friends at tailgating, so that was kind of cool. So
okay, well, we appreciate you joining us. We're going to get into a plethora of topics, so hopefully you brought your A game, sir. All right, so here's the first thing I really want to ask BMAC about this. Up until today, our 2 offensive linemen that we drafted in the 2021 NFL draft, left tackle Christian Darrisaw, who we spoke to about 2 months ago, and hopefully starting right guard Wyatt Davis, were injured or just a little banged up, so to speak. So they didn't get any training camp for week 1. Lo and behold, prepping for the show today, they're back. They got some action in today. So BMAC, does 1 week for a rookie not in training camp, is that a big deal? Will it hurt their prognosis to start week 1, in your opinion, big man?
Remember, I missed the whole training camp.
I know. We've covered that. But in your experience with your teammates?
No, 1 week, I don't think so. Even though they do have a shorter preseason for the games, they still have the same amount of times as far as preparation before their games. So I don't think 1 week will do anything. They still got probably, another 2 weeks before they have to play a first preseason game. So, I mean, he still has time. He has 2 weeks. I feel like 2 weeks gives you a good time to, get a feel for people you're playing against and then start to understand the guy a little bit next to you. Like, y'all can start building a little camaraderie. But being a week out, no, because they just probably got in the pads in the last couple of days. They weren't even in full pads yet, so they didn't miss too much. Being in full pads is where it's a difference. Like, when you know the other stuff, it's kind of like half tempo, stuff like that, but full pads is really the real game shape.
When you were in your second or third year, did the preseason was that really a big deal in terms of getting your neck right, getting your legs right, or?
For me, yeah, like the first 2 games, yeah. By the third game, I kind of had a feel for everything, but that's the game you play the longest because the 4th game you're not gonna play. But I don't know how they're gonna do that this year. That's normally how it goes. But first 2 games for me always gave me an idea of, okay, if I feel good after the second game, third game, I pretty much everything down packed. As far as the new plays, just playing next to the person next to you for the past 4 or 5 weeks, things like that. So he'll come around, and then he's been out, so he'll be eager to pick up on things faster because of the fact that he hasn't been able to be actually on the field.
And then from your experience, obviously, majority of your time here, or maybe not a majority, but a good chunk of your time, it was you and Hutchinson there on the left side with no interruptions. We knew plug it in left tackle, left guard, there was no problem. So based on the Vikings kind of scrambling and putting these guys different combinations out there, what are your thoughts on how that could impact just one guy learning a spot and getting up to speed on it rather than just, all right, we're going to try out this combination, try you out over here?
It's better to have that one guy be in that spot, let him get comfortable with that and comfortable with the person next to him instead of moving all these people around. You want to have your front 5 and you have 2 additionals who can be floaters and fill in at their positions, but you don't want to be scrambling everybody around because one person get hurt. So now you're readjusting the whole line. No, you have these 2 people who are like your wingmen, and you plug them into the spots where people get hurt. Don't move people out of position and all that other stuff. And I feel like Coach Tice kind of said that too last week, but it's better that way because you've been practicing and that's what you've been doing all training camp. So I see the Vikings have somebody gets hurt, they'll take the starting left tackle, move him somewhere. Don't do that. Just you
Does that
should
make-
have two backups somewhere who can float, who
Right.
can play like multiple positions, and allow them to just fill into those spots instead of because now you just readjusted the whole line for one injury. Like you know what I mean? It's unnecessary.
And does that make a difference too? Like whether like obviously a veteran, like say for yourself, you were a left tackle your entire career. If they would have asked you to move to the right side at the end of your career,
Listen, when I went to Baltimore, I made it very clear. Don't have me come there. I understand the man got a whole movie, The Blind Side, and all that, but I'm not coming there if you want to make me play right tackle. So, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm vocal, so I ain't gonna do it because
Would you
now
have
I'm
ever-
gonna look bad at a position that I'm not comfortable with.
would you have ever been a left tackle for a left-handed quarterback? Like, or would you have then switched over to the right side?
No, I just still been left tackle.
Okay.
He
So
would probably
it-
been it's a very few left-handed quarterbacks. So
Right.
Was that a matter
still
of your
gonna be left tackle.
preference? Sorry, was that a matter of your preference, Brian, or was that just
that's
like,
all I learned. I never played right tackle, so that like when I first had to learn the position, I played defensive end in high school. So when I had to learn offensive line, left tackle was it, and it took me forever because I wasn't a left-handed person, and everything had to do from the opposite stance. So once I finally got that down, it was like I could do right hand, but I felt so much more stronger because I've been doing it all these years, but right just. I don't know, just wouldn't have felt.
so when people try to say like it's as simple as just moving O'Neal from right tackle to left tackle, it really is not that simple.
Those people who say it's simple is because they never did it. It's not that simple. Right.
It's the video
like,
game era.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like imagine you doing something with your right hand all the time, and all of a sudden somebody like, oh, it's just as simple. Just start doing it with your left now. Like, no, it's not. It's like your whole body, everything is totally different. It's used to doing something once. Like you have to be ambidextrous for it to be simple.
Hey, Josh, I'm going to guess, and correct the record if I'm wrong. I'm going to guess that you'd prefer Sawh and Davis to start week one, but I want to know, since you follow this team intently like the rest of us, what do you predict will be the starting LT1 and RG1 against Cincinnati?
I'm going to trust Bryant saying and cross my fingers and hope that what he said is true, that it doesn't matter that much that they're not practicing right now. Because, no offense to Dakota Dozier, if he's listening, no offense, but I don't think we want him starting week one.
Yeah.
So I would prefer Wyatt Davis and, Sawh, of course, but I have a feeling that it's probably not going to be both of them. We'll probably get someone else at left tackle and hopefully Davis right guard since he's starting to practice soon. So
Okay.
hopefully that happens. I trust. My faith is in BMAC that it doesn't matter right
Well,
now.
listen, I'm saying I'm speaking of my experience. Like I
Well,
don't
you're
know
all
how
pro. What's tough to
mentally,
say?
people be saying they got mental issues and they can't do stuff. I don't know. Me, I know how to get through things and get it done. I can't speak for everybody.
Hey,
Brian does not need a training camp. Let's be real.
so Sally, Bryant said that the 1 week absence of Sawh and Davis shouldn't be too detrimental to their prognosis of starting, if that is the plan at all.
How many days of pads did they miss?
1.
Yeah, that's not nothing.
Not two, right? Monday and today.
They didn't have pads on Monday. NFL doesn't allow it.
Oh, nice to meet you here.
They don't allow you to have pads on Monday. What?
The
When you
rules
have-
are different now.
Yeah, when you have a day off, they make you, at least this year, if you have a day off, which the Vikings did Sunday, then the pads don't go on the following day.
Where was these rules when I played? I remember when I got there, it was 2 times a day.
Yeah, no, it's different. So Sally, were you spooked at all that these two solutions that we're supposed to have on the offensive line that are rookies just didn't play at all last week, or is it a calm down situation?
I'm not too concerned yet. I mean, I think we have bigger concerns at this time, so maybe they're just not on my radar as much as they should be. But didn't Sawh practice today?
They both did.
Oh, yeah, they both did. So, I mean, no, I'm not that worried about it.
How did they look at practice?
I think I only saw limited stuff since I wasn't there. I saw limited stuff on Twitter, but I didn't hear any horror stories, and that's the important
Right,
takeaway.
so that's good.
Yeah.
They probably a little more fresh than everybody right now.
Yeah. All right, Ron. So the other topic that percolated beginning Saturday. So I was driving up to training camp on Saturday, and that's 4-hour drive from my home.
Go to your bed.
my home in South Dakota, and as soon as I check my phone after that 4-hour drive, the alert that I have from Bleacher Report is that we don't have any quarterbacks to play that night, except for Jake Browning, who did a commendable job on Saturday. So since then, all of a sudden, it feels like our head coach is really adamant about his players being vaccinated. And I never would have predicted that in a million years would be part of his tool bag being, pro-vaccine. I'm certainly down with it. But do you think that, Raun, that Zimmer has been too open about taking, pot shots sort of at his team for not being vaccinated?
I don't think so. And nor do I think it's out of his norm. I mean, he's notoriously called out players who spend time in the cold tub. Like, you can't make the team, if you're hurt. So I think this, the vaccine or not, that issue is availability. And if you're putting your availability in jeopardy, he, as the head coach, has a right to chime in on that. Hey, his job's on the line. We all know that. We've talked about it. If he doesn't make the playoffs, he's likely out. So if you're in charge of running an organization, at least from his level, you want your best players out there, and you don't want that pushback of, in this case, it is the vaccine, but it could be other things. What if it came down to rehabbing of an injury? He is very well in his rights to talk about that, and because it is his team. So I actually like the openness and honesty of it, because for everything that's out there for all the players, and it doesn't matter who it is, whatever, everyone does have their right. I get that, but the superior, their boss, does have the right of calling them out on that. If I have employees that are calling in sick, guess what? I can say something about it. So I actually like that he's bringing it up now, because I think it does kind of at least opens the floodgates prior to the season, because I joked around about it a few weeks ago. It would be a very Minnesota-like fashion for things to be rolling, and someone gets knocked out due to COVID, and we have Jake Browning taking snaps. We have what's the new case Cookus, whatever, that's a very Minnesota situation where you get someone who just has to go in because they're not supposed to. So hopefully it doesn't bleed into this season, but I don't think that it's going anywhere.
One thing Mike Zimmer is not is a diplomat. He's not. He doesn't dance. He'll flat out say he doesn't want to talk about something, but he doesn't mince words, and that's been his claim to fame since I've known of him. Bryant, I've also wanted to pick your brain on this. Now, I personally, I guess you'd say I'm pro-vaccine. Sometimes I'm astonished that I have to announce that I want the pandemic to end, and therefore I support vaccines. I don't know what you personally are, but if you were still playing and you had maybe 30% of the locker room was steadfast about getting a vaccine, would that divide a locker room, or do you think it would just be to each man their own and let's do our?
I think it'd be to each man their own. Because I think some people are just, every man-made medicine has its side effects, and I feel like a lot of people don't know. So some people are trying to wait to see what the side effects are, I guess. Even though you have plenty of vaccines for the measles, smallpox, like that people have taken in the past, but I guess more people kind of educate themselves in a holistic way. So I do know there are players who would rather take their elderberry, their zinc, and things like that, and try to fight and build up their immune system that way instead of taking the vaccine. So people do things for different reasons. So that's why some people are against it, some people aren't.
Are you personally spooked by the vaccine?
Am I spooked by it? I just don't. I feel like it was created so fast. I don't know what's in it yet. So I think a lot of people kind of waited and are waiting just to kind of see anything abnormal that may happen first before they just decide to dive in and take it. But eventually, I feel like a lot of people want to take it.
With the penalties that come from, if the Vikings were to have to forfeit a game or something like that, would that influence your decision to get it?
Well, this is the thing, really.
That's a great question.
I have my person who does my rehab for my shoulder. I can't go to her this week because she took the vaccine and she has COVID. So it still doesn't mean that you can't get it. You know what I'm saying? Basically, what it's saying is you won't die from it. So you still,
that's a big deal.
Well, it's like, get it. So regardless of vaccine or not, anybody can still have to forfeit a game if somebody has, because they still got a quarantine and everything else. It's just the way it affects you shouldn't be as bad. So Vaccine
And
or
I
not,
think
anybody
that's
can still
the
get it. And I don't want people to feel like they took the vaccine that they're immune to it, because you're not.
right. And that's where like I think I find it laughable because people don't understand. Apparently 95% is not 100%. It's like birth control isn't 100% effective, yet people still
Right.
get pregnant. So it's like I find that funny because yeah, to your point, it's mainly like it'll help because now
It
instead of
helps,
being
yeah.
100%, they're not 100%, but more susceptible to it now. It reduces that risk, but yeah, then it mitigates the
And I
the
think
effects.
when people take the vaccine, they almost feel like they're immune now. Like, oh, I took the
Yeah.
vaccine, I'm good. And then even our whole government was telling people, if you took the vaccine, you gotta wear a mask. Now it's put your mask back on, even though you took the vaccine, because you can catch it and still be a carrier and give it to others. So
Yeah.
basically, the vaccine just saves you from potentially dying.
Right.
And we're doing this to protect the vulnerable. So once
Right.
we're vaccinated, whether you're 20 or 80, you're probably not going to die. But as Bryant said, I can still be at age 37, I can still be a host of it. But if Barbara, who's 71 and with COPD, she can get it from droplets in my throat from me breathing. And if she doesn't have the vaccine, then she could conceivably die.
Right.
So it's the collective community part of a pandemic that really gets dicey with the individual choice part. Sally, so Zimmer has been very blunt about this topic. I know that you like Zimmer on some things. Sometimes he gets on your nerves. You want to weigh in on him in this regard?
Honestly, I don't really think the criticism that he's getting for this is fair. I haven't heard him call out any players specifically by name. He has talked about the quarterbacks, but that is because that's already common knowledge and that's already out there, given the situation that came to light on Saturday. He has not named anyone else. And I think that we can all remember times in the past where he did criticize players, as Raun said, for not coming back. Sharif Floyd is one that comes to mind, who he was very harsh on, who it turned out later had nerve damage and never came back from his injury, who he was very stern with, very visibly frustrated. There's obviously a frustration, but you can tell it kind of comes from a place of concern. I Bleav it's concern for his job, but it seems more than that to me. It seems to me that he is genuinely concerned about safety in his locker room and also unity. The players that we know are unvaccinated, the 7, they're all vocal leaders in the locker room. They're all veterans. They're all guys that we talk about on this show every single week. And that's got to have a trickle down effect on everyone else. So of course it is a personal choice. I mean, I even heard him mention his new grandbaby twins the other day, that he is concerned if how it were passed to their mother or something like that. He seems to me like he really genuinely cares. So I don't really feel the criticism is warranted. He's not bashing anyone. I think he's going to keep getting asked about it, and now he has the lowest percentage in the league. So
yeah. I think your point on, the leaders that we perceive or theorize aren't vaccinated. The trickle down effect is palpable because boom, we have the lowest vaccination rate in the NFL. I think the only thing that Zimmer did that would be considered like, oh my goodness, is I think they were trying to get him to say who the unvaccinated players was. And he invited the media to come see who gets tested when they come into the facility. So it was kind of like, do your investigation there, homie.
I have one more question for Bryant before we move on to something else. I saw, and I don't want to over paraphrase, but I saw that Ryan Tannehill of the Titans basically said that he wouldn't have gotten vaccinated if it weren't for the possible penalties, and that it was more of like I want to avoid these penalties for my team, like a leadership thing. Like, is that something that you think would cause issues in the locker room from our quarterback possibly not doing that?
No, I think everybody kind of respect in a situation like this. I think everybody has respect for each other's own decision with this, because everybody has different feelings on it.
But what if it ended up in a game having to be forfeited because of an outbreak? Would then it possibly influence?
But it also depends on who the outbreak comes from. It could come from a vaccinated person too.
I think the main thing,
No,
like the reason why,
you're trying to get the percentage of the locker room to a certain amount so that there is immunity in the locker room, so that if someone does get sick, it doesn't spread.
But this is what I keep trying to say. There is no such thing as immunity. You
Right,
still
but-
can get it with the vaccine.
I think
Yes,
it's more so
know.
for the NFL rules. Like if, because that's
all
why,
it is rules. There's no immunity.
right.
I told you,
but
the
it's for,
person who does my rehab, they have it now.
right.
They're like, yeah, have me get it. It's like, you haven't got the vaccine and you got it now.
It's
And
more
you
so
missed 2
for
weeks of work.
the players that, like, if they are deemed close contact, like if someone does get it and if you don't have it and you're in close contact with that person, then like what happened with Cousins, Kellen Mond, who's vaccinated, had it, and then Cousins didn't have.
Kellen is not vaccinated.
Oh, he's not? I thought that they said he was vaccinated. But anyway, so Cousins might not have any symptoms, and clearly he hasn't, and he's tested negative because he's able to come back tomorrow. But because he was in close contact with Kellen, if he was vaccinated in close contact, he would have been allowed to practice. That's what led Jake Browning to being the only one able to practice, because he. So I think that's what it more so. It's not going to be like a Denver Broncos situation last year where they have to pull up a practice squad receiver to play quarterback. The league's just going to cancel the game, and the team that is the cause of it's going to have to forfeit. So availability is going to be key this year.
All right, we'll move on to the next segment, so to speak. Josh, you've been following training camp, presumably. Who is your front runner for Mr. Mankato or Mr. Egan, whatever we're calling him now?
Sally already knows who I'm going to say. We were at the night practice. I know you were there. My guy, Wap. I got to go with Wap.
Yeah.
Wap Filer. That's my Mr. Mankato nominee. I didn't realize until, I watched him at practice or whatever, but I looked up some of his stats, and he had actually a really good junior year at Indiana. So if he could pull through and, be a wide receiver 4 or something like that, it seems like he was making some plays out there. He's got a good personality. We need another personality on the team. That just brings extra, and wide receivers are known for flair anyway. That he's got the flair. We love that.
Yeah, he certainly does. Sally, who's yours? You're smiling over there the whole time.
I mean, this is the problem. I knew he was going to say WAP. I knew it since I saw the questions, and I still can't come up with anyone else. That's how much I love WAP. So.
Oh, okay. So you were smiling in agreement.
Well, let me clear the air here, Ron, on something really quick, because Ron and I were texting on Saturday about he wanted to come to night practice, but it was sold out. I bought Minnesota and his girlfriend a ticket the day that they went on sale. Minnesota and I are getting ready to go into the game, and I'm like, let me give you your ticket. He goes, oh, I already have mine. I bought them. I was so upset that I did not find out until 5 minutes before, because Ron, I would have hooked you up. So,
All right, you see how they're doing me dirty, Brian? They did you. They're doing me dirty just like they did you.
I appreciate that too, but I was telling Dustin on Sunday, like it was more so like with the 2 kids, and like I didn't buy the ticket because it's more so I don't know if it's if I was 100% able to make it work. So if it would have been kind of a like 5 o'clock. All right, great. I would be able to make it, but before that it was hard to commit. So no worries. I wish I could have been there. It would have been nice to kind of get together. But
are you coming on
no
Saturday,
worries.
Ron?
No plans to.
Okay.
But
I was going to say, I'll apologize in person if you're coming on Saturday.
I
may have a little bit more flexibility this weekend than last weekend, so we'll see.
I can tell you, Ron, from personal experience, you're about 3 or 4 years away from getting out of that dicey what time of night is it territory. They can start to go the distance at about age 4.5. So
yeah.
Not too far away. My Mr. Mankato / Egan to date work in progress is KJ Osborne. And that is because we live in this immediacy era where if a rookie has issues or fumbles punts or doesn't get on the offense, he sucks. We're never going to see from him again. If it's a bust, what the hell's wrong with his general manager anyway? That's what we do. And Osborne didn't have any real expectations coming into this training camp, and he's making some plays. Now, that doesn't mean that he's guaranteed to make the team, but I think that we collectively as a Vikings entity might have written him off too soon. He wasn't like an undrafted dude nobody heard of. He came from the 2020 draft, and he might just be one of those rookies that took a little time to get acclimated, like, have a preseason or have a training camp that doesn't feel makeshift. So I think he's the front runner for me, although Oli Udo seems to be making strides for the right guard position. I want to see how that parses out, because it seems like a Zimmer tactic throughout his time here, where if a guy is in year 3, you start playing the heck out of them in meaningless situations to see what you have before you cut them. It's kind of like what happened with Aviante Collins. So I hope that's not what's happening to Oli, and it seems like it's not, but we shall see. Ron, who's your Mr. Mankato?
Well, I think you actually just mentioned the two of them,
okay.
between Osborne and Udo. And for me, I'd give it to Udo. I think because it's a little unexpected in the sense that, coming into training camp, we were kind of thinking it was either going to be kind of Wyatt Davis or, unfortunately, Dakota Dozier vying for that right guard spot. So the fact that he kind of inserted himself as a right guard, and to Brian's point earlier, like, he's been a tackle his entire career. So and the fact that he looks like he's been playing well, obviously he's getting the reps. I know I was one that said that Wyatt Davis, I think, is the best guard on the roster, but I don't know if he'll be the initial starter due to just his experience and not being a first round draft pick like Darrisaw is. But I would have never guessed that Udo would be that one kind of coming in to potentially take that job. But I mean, hey, as long as he doesn't look like Drew Samia did in that Twitter clip that went viral yesterday, why not give him a shot at least as a placeholder for a little while.
Bryant, do you remember Mr. Mankato, or is that like a fan driven thing?
I think we did have something, Mr. We had a whole award show at the end of training camp in there, and I think Mr. Mankato might have been in there. It was Mr. Ugly. It was a whole bunch of different awards. Like,
boy, we got to hear about it.
It was like Ugly Man Award.
Time out. We got to hear about these. Yep, we got to hear about.
I can't remember all of them, but we the next time we have a guest, a former player, they'll tell you, it was like Ugly Man Award. It was like different awards. They would have remember that.
Was it a coach who dished these out, or did you guys vote on them?
I guess people voted. They were like kind of mean now I think about it.
Do you remember who won Mr.
One year they named it the Sam Cassell Award one year. Like,
oh man.
I missed it. What?
Mr. Ugly Award was named the Sam Cassell Award.
Yeah, it was bad. Like, at the end of training camp, they gave out awards, but it was like almost like superlatives, but they were like insulting a little bit too. Like,
well, yeah,
that's definitely one of them. But we would have asked like Pat and Kevin, all them, they would have told you. Yeah, I forgot all about that.
And was that presumably Cassell was on the Timberwolves at the time?
The coaches were there. Yeah, he was on the Timberwolves at the time.
So that would have been the 03-04 season.
The coaches would be there while the awards again. And they would be laughing too. If we'd asked Coach Tyson last week, he would have been like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm picturing like Michael Scott and the Dundee Awards type thing where it's not it's meant to kind of be like a compliment, but it's also like a little
that wasn't the Sam Cassell Award.
Oh, that's great.
Look up the history of who has won, but I'm having a hard time finding anything.
It's probably not something that media was privy to at that point.
No, it hasn't.
Oh my gosh.
For a long time. Oh no, not for that. I just mean Mr. Mankato like history.
But next time we have a former player as a guest, definitely make sure we ask about
now
that.
Now we know that we're gonna drill deep into that.
Yeah.
All right. So what Josh, back to you. What are some of your takeaways from camp thus far? Stuff that surprised you? I think we all know that the last 3 days of camp have been undesirable, at least from all the hubbub surrounding it. But what have you been surprised by in this training camp?
I don't know that it was a surprise per se, but Justin Jefferson looks fantastic. Like, he looks every bit as good as we saw last year and possibly better. Like, when you have, Patrick Peterson and other corners that just simply can't guard him, that is a good sign going forward. And the fact that the D line is just so bolstered with, bringing back Sheldon Richardson, and now you got Dalvin Tomlinson, Michael Pierce, Daniil is back. I think we're just going to see night and day difference on the defense compared to what we saw last year.
Okay. The one that I have, and this also isn't groundbreaking, but it makes me feel good, is so most Vikings fans and then even some NFL entities are projecting a breakout year for Irv Smith. And that's predominantly because Kyle Rudolph is, quote, out of the way. He no longer plays here, although I think he might come back to finish his career. That's neither here nor there. He plays for the Giants. So we have this utopian vision that Irv Smith is going to break out, second-round draft pick. This is the year to do it. But I had the sneaking suspicion that Conklin is going to find a way to share those targets, and that would leave Smith kind of in limbo, purgatory, where he is. I posted a statistic on Twitter last night that since 2019, which is when Smith came in the league, both Rudolph and Smith per game get about 3 targets. And nobody can break out of anything when they get 3 targets per game. And if you look at some of the leagues, like the top 10 tight ends in the league, they get between 7 and 8 targets. Now in training camp, it seems that Smith is doing enough, being focused on enough, even by this plethora of quarterbacks, the cookuses. It seems like Smith will be the guy. And if Conklin wants to get a couple, that's fine. But if we want to have this true metamorphosis from Irv Smith, he's got to get the targets. And I'm starting to feel better that that's going to happen. Ron, you said earlier about it be the most Vikings thing ever for COVID to derail a Super Bowl caliber roster. That's kind of how I feel like, yeah, we got this Irv Smith guy who's basically a muscular wide receiver, but it's not going to do us a damn bit of good if we don't use him. I'm starting to get the vibe that we will use him. So I'm encouraged by that. That's one of my favorite things about this camp. What say you, Ron, on this training camp through a week of it?
So I will actually, kind of piggyback off of our initial topic regarding the vaccinations. And I think regardless of what happens during the season, I think with Kirk missing so much time, because we all know what Kirk is capable of. He's an accurate passer. He puts the ball where it needs to be. He has faults in his game, sure, but accuracy is not one of them. So what I actually like seeing in a lot of these highlights that I'm seeing with wide receivers catching the ball and everything, they're not well thrown balls all the time. They're having to adjust midair. They're having to extend and do stuff that they might not typically be used to doing. So you're kind of expanding on their arsenal. The Jefferson, there was one with Jefferson where he had to adjust to the ball, come back, and I saw the comment was very Moss-like, and seeing those things are okay. Maybe it was, I see so much of it that
I said Randy-ish. Well, the way that he cut back for it and kind of cradled it. Yeah.
And those are things that you didn't see last year because he was being hit in stride. They were like perfectly thrown balls. So I actually kind of like that. If nothing else, maybe Kirk gets a little bit more gambler in him. Hey, pockets breaking down, I'm just going to throw it up there because now I have trust in these receivers to make those plays. So, but again, more so just on the young receiving core minus Thielen, the rest of the receiving core is fairly young, to kind of be able to see them in action, adjust to those balls. That to me was, I know it's not the best observation or whatever, but I enjoyed seeing it because it's you see at Bears camp and Andy Dalton's throwing it way over guys' heads. And so, I think there's a little something that's telling about, receiver that can make those adjustments.
Another comment that flew under the radar because it happened right before the vaccination stuff blew up. Cousins was talking to somebody. I don't know if it was K-Fan or some media outlet. And he said a self-diagnosis that he needs to run the ball more. And I don't think there's anything in the world that galvanizes more pro-Kirk people and anti-Kirk people than him tucking the ball and running. Even the naysayers say, see, that's what I want him to do right there. And he did that in Washington. He had more leeway to do it. He scored rushing touchdowns galore in Washington, and nobody cares or nobody knows about it. So I think if he's telling the truth about that he actually will tuck and run, we'll have a little bit more modern feeling offense. And that's one of the odd critiques of Gary Kubiak's offense was that, well, yeah, it scored a bunch of points, but it didn't really look cool doing it. And I never understood that one. But I think if Kirk's telling the truth, that we'll see him tuck and run a little bit more. And I think that helps the enterprise. Sally, 2 things. Give us your takeaways from camp and then take us into the human interest segment.
Well, I mean, again, I feel like all I'm doing is taking other people's takes today. It is kind of harder, more difficult to evaluate with the quarterback situation, obviously. And it will be, so Kirk will be back tomorrow, so he will play in the scrimmage, right?
Yes.
and then he will play in the joint practices next week, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I think obviously we're going to see a lot more next week, especially with playing against opponents. But overall camp, I mean, I think the wide receivers, especially, I'm impressed with. We talked about KJ and Waff. We haven't seen too much from Didi, I don't think, but I think Didi was at Zimmer's house earlier, which is really interesting. I don't know why he would be over there, but he has a Snapchat of Zimmer's front of his house. So
Probably getting vaccinated.
at the house.
Zimmer's probably giving them out on the side. Just get over it.
Well, I hope, yeah. Anyway, yeah, so the wide receivers, that's been great. Hopefully we'll see more from the offensive line. But I agree with what Josh said too about the defense. There's a lot to be excited about if we could just get over this drama.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I've looked at this from every angle because I write so damn much about this team. I think you guys will probably scoff at this, but I think there's a reasonable chance that Cousins gets back tomorrow and this shit dies down. Like, because we're so ingrained in it right now. Like, well, what happens when he gets it in week 15 and we're, in a playoff chase? That probably won't happen. There's a chance of it. But as nasty as this virus is, I don't think it's going to be every single day we're talking about who has COVID on the Vikings. I think it's just that this really blew up, and because it was the foremost leader on the team and he was scrutinized for it, I think we're going to see a lowering of the temperature, and we may not have an outbreak anytime soon. That could be a freezing cold take. We shall see. Let's hear the human interest segment.
Yeah, I genuinely hope that you're right. I'm a little more hesitant to eat that just because of, the virus is picking up in general. So, and plus now the media seems pretty fixated on this and they don't normally let things go around here. But speaking of drama, I was thinking maybe everyone could discuss what is their most memorable past Vikings drama or schism that doesn't have anything to do with a contagious disease. So, I know we have many to choose from.
The biggest part of Vikings drama.
Well, it doesn't even necessarily have to be trained. It seems like every year we have a storyline, whether it's Adrian Peterson, whether it's Favre holding out of camp, whether it's a Love Boat on a bye week, out on Lake Minnetonka.
I think that one's legendary.
We've read Wikipedia about you, sir.
Shout out Fred Smoot.
I think mine isn't a negative. Mine is kind of what Joe Johnson.
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah.
Remember last week when Coach Tice said he talked about the Love Boat? He said, but then we went on a winning streak. That was the whole purpose. And I told you guys that before.
Yeah.
But remember, he said that. He said, yeah, but then we went on like a 7-game winning streak. He even said it himself, but that was the purpose. It brought us together.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed him saying that. I'll have to listen to
Team
it.
bond.
Go back and listen to it. He
Team
mentioned
bonding.
it. He didn't say all in the same breath. He said, well, the boat incident. He said, but then we went on a win streak after that.
Yeah.
He said it in conversation.
Yeah.
Well,
Remember, I said it before too. I said, well, yeah, after that, we went on like a 7-game win streak too.
My most memorable one isn't a negative one, and it's kind of cliche. It was the confirmation and monitoring of Favre coming for the first time, like in the Suburban or Navigator, whatever it was, driving to the airport, or Childress.
Too.
Yep, Childress.
We were going to lunch, and we were like, we seen the jersey change. I forget who the quarterback was, and we seen he wore number 4, and all of a sudden in his locker was a different number.
John
we went
David
upstairs for
Booty.
lunch. We went upstairs for lunch, and the TV was on, and they was following him like it was the OJ Simpson situation. The helicopter was following the truck.
Yeah.
Following all the way to Winter Park.
It was surreal. Yep, that's the one that would probably off the field stand out to me. But that like had butterflies in my stomach as a 25-year-old. And then both the Wiener incidents, the Wizinator with Ontario Smith was just so hilarious. And then the
The
fact,
crank a shank.
yeah, and then the fact when the news broke about Favre sending pictures of his soft wiener to a reporter, that one was so bizarre from every masculine angle you could think of. So yeah, that one was strange. those are memorable. I certainly.
I
Don't.
thought you were going to allude to Visante Shenko. That's
Oh no, so there's 3 penises involved in Vikings lore. Well, there's probably more, but there's 3 that we know of. So Sally, what's your most memorable?
I want to hear Brian's response to all of those. First of all, what did you guys think when you saw this on TV? What was your reaction?
Which one?
The first one, the car.
Shanko's penis.
No.
That was my mistake, though. I knew the Shanko thing was my mistake. Brett Favre was kind of shocked, like, what?
No, wait a second. When you're eating lunch and you see on TV that Brett Favre is being followed to come to Winter Park, what was your thought then?
I just couldn't believe it. And then he was right at practice. You know, right after lunch, you kind of go to practice. He was right out at practice in the huddle, like
ready to go.
It was like he got there, but we didn't know where he was at. We didn't see him. And then all of a sudden, he was upstairs or whatever. And then we was already dressed, and we went out to practice. And next thing you know, he come walk out there too. We didn't see him right away. Like when he pulled in, we were up at lunch. I don't know where they took him, but we didn't see him right away. And then when the time for practice, he came out on the field.
And you just went to work. That was it.
He looked up at me because where we was at in the huddle, he was directly across from me. He looked up at me and I looked at him like, and he kind of like laughed because I'm looking like, this is crazy. I guess he kind of read my face expression like, what? Like, you know what I mean? And then he kind of like laughed. And then from there, just, went on. And I didn't know what to expect from him either because, they was, media puts things out, but it's not always accurate.
Yeah.
Act like he was a diva, but he's far from that.
Sally, what's yours? Since this is a great topic, by the way. What's yours?
Well, I wasn't prepared to answer. I was just prepared to.
Oh, okay. Josh, what's yours?
Dustin, you took like all of my favorites. So.
The most distinct one I can remember was a sad one of I was listening to the radio when Teddy got hurt. And
oh, God, yeah.
That was a real bad one because I loved Teddy. And when he got hurt, I remember listening to him on the radio and you knew it was bad. So
yeah,
that's the most distinct one that comes to mind.
Yeah, I remember the news alerts from that, and just because we were such a precious time with him, thinking that we were going to watch the progression of a 3rd-year quarterback in the tell all year, and he was always so calm and money in the 4th quarter, and it felt like we were sitting on a gold mine. So
they just won the division. They came off winning the division the year before.
Absolutely.
Wow, we have had so many dramatic training camps, every single one.
Sorry, guys, I didn't mean to bring the mood down.
Oh, I forgot. That one was devastating.
Yeah. Ron, what's yours?
Well, I mean, I guess to go away from the kind of the depressing ones, I'll actually go when we got Hutchinson, when we added him, because at the time that 7-year, $49 million deal that he got, that was strictly left tackle money, and they have a guard come in and make that to kind of set that standard. It intrigued me because I obviously knew what a talent he was, and I knew that left side of the line that they had in Seattle with Walter Jones and him with Sean Alexander in the backfield. I was like, all right, well now we got Mount McKinney and Hutchinson, and at the time Matt Burke. So it's like, all right, Minnesota moving company's back. So for me, that was for us, it seemed like we were never in like the big game free agency hunting up until that point. So that, and then it set off a trend. We got him, and then obviously making the trade for Jared Allen, drafting Adrian Peterson. So that to me was kind of a big turning point in the franchise, at least in terms of like being able to go out and get free agents while they're in their prime, not the Warren Moons and Brett Favres that are, at the tail end of their careers. So
Jim McMahon,
yeah, all of them. The laundry list is long there.
It's usually quarterbacks to retread them.
Which actually, if we were thinking about it, like I didn't even realize, I did put 2 and 2 together that this weekend was the Hall of Fame induction and that they were doing last year's class this year. So with Hutchinson going in, BMAC, we should have tapped into you to try to get
reach out to
Hutchinson
him,
on
right?
the phone. Yeah. maybe now that he's in the Hall of Fame and things will maybe settle down a little bit, maybe we can get him on in the next few weeks or
that'd
so.
be sweet. Sally, did you think of any, or are we going to sign off on a silent note?
I mean, there's just so many. Let me see. The Wisnager was a good one. I don't know. I'll go with Love Boat. Love Boat was a great bonding experience, like Bryant said. It taught me a lot about extracurricular activities. So I thank you for that.
And the winning.
Water sports that I did not know at that age. So
Yep, she was. What was it? You said you were just graduating high school or getting close to it?
that was what, 2000?
5.
2005.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was a senior in high school. Yeah. So
Yeah. Well,
that's
well,
something to put in my toolbox, if you know what I mean.
yep. McKinney's out here teaching life lessons on a boat.
Oh gosh.
Just proliferating them out in the world. All right. Well, that's all we have for tonight. Next week, we will have, I Bleav, a man named Dan who is from Purple Pain Forums. For some of you fans that might interact on there, Dan knows his stuff. He's going to come on and talk with us. Josh, we appreciate you joining us. Good sir.
Thanks, Josh.
Yep, we'll have you back. Let Sally know when you're available. We'll
Sounds
have you
good.
back. We'll have you back during the season, and hopefully we'll be talking about some sweet 7-1 record or something like that.
We'll be in Cincinnati.
Oh, so that's right. That's you two are going to that. All right. Well, that's all we got for this week. And Skol Vikings.
Bye.
All right. Have a good one, everyone.
All right, everybody, take it easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Sorry.
Josh.
Bye,
Sorry.
guys.
Okay.